A moving truck slowly pulls out of a quiet, upscale street in Abuja. The sun is setting, casting a soft orange glow over the neighborhood. Amaka stands alone at the gate, watching the truck disappear down the road. She's holding a brown lawyer's envelope close to her chest. Her face is still. Her eyes are empty. No tears. Just silence. The house behind her, painted cream and gold, with tall glass windows and a neat front garden, is no longer hers. She built it. Every tile, every light fixture, every nail had her fingerprints. But now it belongs to someone else. She takes a slow breath and looks at the gate, the one she once proudly opened for guests, friends, and family. Now it's locked. Her key doesn't work anymore. Her voice is barely a whisper. He sold it without telling me. Without a word. Her fingers tighten around the envelope. The lawyer's letter had confirmed it. The house was sold. Legally. But not to her. Her thoughts drift back to just 3 months ago. Laughter filled the same compound. Music played. Children ran around. Guests clinked glasses. It was their housewarming party. The dream home. Her husband, David, stood tall beside her in a clean white kaftan. He raised a glass and said, "To my wife Amaka, the queen who built this home from the ground up." Everyone clapped. Even David's mother and brothers, though their smiles were stiff and forced. Amaka had never felt prouder. Years of saving, planning, working late into the night. It had all come together. This house was her gift to their future. For their daughter. For them. Back in the present, her hand touches the gate once more. Cold metal. No warmth left here. Then her voice, clear and calm, speaks again, like a voiceover in her own story. "He said the house was ours, but the deed never had my name on it. And when his family needed money, he sold the only thing I ever built, and I found out from a stranger." She turns, walks away from the gate, slow but steady. Behind her, the house stands quiet. The lights turn on inside. Someone else's family now lives there. Amaka doesn't look back. Amaka was born and raised in Benin City. Her family didn't have much. They lived in a small house with leaky roofs and noisy neighbors. But even as a child, Amaka dreamed big. She always told her mother, "One day, I'll build a house with my own hands. A house no one can take from me." She was the first in her family to go to university. It wasn't easy. She worked jobs on campus, cleaning offices, tutoring younger students, even selling snacks, to pay her fees and survive. She studied human resources and worked hard to finish strong. During her NYSC, she met David. He was charming, confident, and always talking about business ideas. He said he wanted to be rich enough to change his whole family's life. Amaka liked that. He made her laugh. He made her feel seen. They got married just a year after meeting. Her friends warned her it was too fast, but she believed in him. Amaka never cared about flashy things. Her dream was simple, to have something in her own name. Not clothes. Not shoes. Not even a car. A house. Something her daughter, Ella, could grow up in and one day inherit. After years of working in HR and saving every kobo, she finally bought land. She designed the house herself. Every weekend, she visited the site to check the progress. She argued with builders, stayed up at night choosing tiles and paint, and made sure everything was done well. David supported her at first. He'd say, "You're amazing, babe. This house will be our legacy." But after the house was done, something changed. He started acting distant. He stopped helping with things around the home. Then his family started coming around more often. His mother, Mama David, never liked Amaka. She'd make sly comments like, "All this running around, are you sure you're still being a good wife?" Or, "A woman should submit and let the man lead." David's brothers weren't any better. They laughed behind her back, saying she was trying to wear the trousers in the marriage. Still, Amaka kept her head up. She focused on her daughter, on her job, on making the house a real home. Then one day, everything changed. Amaka came back from a short work trip. She was tired but happy, ready to rest in her home. But when she got to the gate, she noticed something strange. A new car was parked in the driveway. The curtains in the sitting room were different. She tried her key. It didn't work. She knocked. A woman opened the door and looked confused. "Can I help you?" "This is my house," Amaka said, her voice shaking. The woman frowned. "I'm sorry, we just moved in. We bought this house." Amaka couldn't breathe. She turned to the gate security. "Baba Yusuf, what is going on?" The old man looked uncomfortable. "Madam, your husband sold the house 2 weeks ago. He told us you relocated abroad." Her phone shook in her hand as she dialed David. He didn't pick up. She called again. Nothing. Her whole world. Amaka finally found David 2 days later. He was staying at his mother's house in Festac. She took a cab there without telling anyone. Her heart was heavy, but she needed answers. She knocked on the door. Mama David opened it, frowned, and called inside. "David, she's here." David came out slowly, holding a glass of juice like nothing was wrong. He didn't even look surprised to see her. "You really came all the way here?" he said, sitting down on the couch. Amaka stood by the door. She didn't sit. You sold the house, she said quietly. Without telling me. David shrugged. I'm the man of the house. I don't owe you a speech every time I make a decision. Her eyes narrowed. You sold my house. My life's work. And you didn't even have the decency to tell me? I came back from work and strangers were living there. He sipped his drink slowly. You were so obsessed with having something for yourself. You forgot this is a family. My mother needed surgery. We needed money. I did what I had to do. Amaka's hands were shaking now. That house was built with my money. I planned every part of it. And you just sold it like it meant nothing. David looked at her, calm and cold. It was our house, he said. But I'm the one on the deed. I registered it under my company. For tax reasons. My lawyer friend handled it. She stared at him, heart pounding. My name isn't on the papers? He nodded. Nope. Never was. That's how it works when you're smart about business. Her breath caught in her throat. You knew all this time, and you said nothing? You always wanted to control everything. You kept saying my house, my plan, my design. I just gave you space. But now that we needed the money, I did what I had to do. Amaka didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just stood there. Something broke inside her, but it didn't fall apart. It turned hard. She looked around the small sitting room one last time, then back at him. Without another word, she turned and walked out. David didn't call after her. As she stepped into the sun outside, her steps were slow but steady. She had lost her house. But something else had been found. Something deep. Amaka moved into a small one-room apartment on the outskirts of the city. It was nothing like her old home. The ceiling was low, the paint on the wall was peeling, and the bathroom door didn't close properly. She tried to make it look nice for Ella, adding soft curtains and a small pink mat, but it still felt empty. Cold. Ella sat on the bed one evening, holding her teddy bear close. Mummy, when are we going back home? She asked. Amaka smiled gently, though her chest ached. Soon, my love. Very soon. But the truth was she didn't know. During the day, she still went to work at her HR office, pretending everything was fine. At night, she sat on the floor in their tiny room, going through papers, bank statements, and emails. She visited lawyer after lawyer. Most of them gave her the same answer. Your name isn't on the deed, they said. Legally, the house was his to sell. One lawyer even told her, unless you can prove fraud or deception, there's not much we can do. Then came another blow. David filed for full custody of Ella. His lawyer claimed Amaka was emotionally unstable and unable to provide a proper home for the child. He even attached photos of her one-room apartment, saying it was unsafe for a child. Amaka felt like the air had been punched out of her chest. She sat in silence for a long time. Then, out of desperation, she called Chitty. Chitty had been her friend since university. They used to study together in the library and share cheap meals during NYSC. Now he was a senior partner at a respected firm. He came over the next day with food and a kind smile. You should have called me sooner, he said gently. I didn't want to bring my mess into your life, she replied. Chitty looked her in the eye. You're not a mess. He is. He made a few calls and introduced her to Sandra Ease, a sharp, confident lawyer known for fighting for women in property and custody battles. Sandra listened quietly as Amaka told her the whole story. Then she leaned forward. You may not own the house, but you can own the story. If we can show he tricked you, used your trust, and acted in bad faith, we have a case. Amaka nodded slowly. Something inside her flickered to life. Over the next few weeks, she began digging. She found out the company David used to sell the house wasn't licensed to sell residential properties under that kind of title. That alone could void the sale. She also discovered the buyer was not a real person. It was a shell company, a fake name. When she traced it further, she found a paper trail that led to David's brother, Cunnell. Cunnell was trying to flip the house for double the price. Then came the worst discovery. 3 days before the sale, David had emptied their joint account. All the savings she had worked for. Gone. Sandra looked at the documents and smiled. This is good. This is very good. Fraud. Deception. Financial abuse. We'll build the case. But while Amaka was fighting with facts and documents, David's family was fighting with words. They told anyone who would listen that Amaka had never respected David, that she tried to take control of everything, that she was too focused on her job to be a proper wife. She embarrassed him. She never submitted. She wanted to wear the trousers in the home. These stories spread like wildfire. Amaka tried not to care, but it hurt. Even people at work started acting strange. Some whispered when she walked by. Others asked questions with fake concern. Then, one night, the worst call came. Her mother had collapsed. Amaka rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. The doctor said it was a stroke, brought on by too much stress, he added gently. Amaka knew what that meant. Her mother had been worrying, praying, holding her heart too tight over all that was happening. At the funeral, Amaka stood by the grave in silence. Ella held her hand. Family members came to say sorry. Neighbors came to cry. Then she saw David. He walked in wearing dark sunglasses, holding his mother's arm. Behind them stood a woman, young, soft-spoken, wearing a long, flowy dress. Amaka had never seen her before. Someone leaned over and whispered, "That's Tommy. They've been together for a while now. Over a year." Amaka didn't move. She didn't cry. She just looked at him, and in that moment she felt nothing. Not pain, not anger, just a quiet fire in her chest. She was going to fight, and this time she would not lose. The courtroom was quiet, cold, and filled with people. Amaka sat beside Sandra, dressed in a simple navy blue dress. She looked calm, but her hands were clenched under the table. She could feel her heart beating in her chest. David sat across the room, wearing a gray suit and pretending to be relaxed. His lawyer, a tall man with a proud smile, stood like he had already won. The judge walked in. Everyone stood. Then the hearing began. Sandra stood confidently. "Your Honor, this case is not just about a house. It's about betrayal, deceit, and abuse of trust." She went through every piece of evidence, one by one. First, the fraudulent sale, how David sold the house without telling Amaka, using a company that had no legal right to sell residential property. Next, the financial documents. She showed how David emptied their joint account just before the sale, leaving Amaka with nothing. Then came the text messages, David joking with his brother about how Amaka thought she could play a man's game and win. The words were cruel, mocking, and full of pride. The courtroom was silent. David's lawyer stood up and laughed lightly. "Your Honor, even if these things are true, the house is already sold. It's done. You can't reverse that." He looked straight at Amaka and smirked. "She's chasing shadows." Sandra didn't blink. She walked to the front and placed a thick file on the judge's desk. "The house was not sold to a real buyer," she said calmly. "It was sold to a shell company with no real identity. That shell company then sold it again to David's brother, Cunnell. This is real estate laundering." The room gasped. Sandra continued. "We've filed a motion to freeze both transactions and seize the house pending investigation." The judge read through the papers, nodded slowly, and then looked up. "I'm granting a temporary injunction. Both properties are to be frozen. No sales, no changes, until this case is fully resolved." Amaka let out a slow breath. It wasn't over, but it was something. A first step. After the hearing, people began to leave the courtroom. Sandra went to speak to the clerk. Amaka stepped outside to get fresh air. She didn't see David coming until he was right in front of her. His face was red with anger. He spoke through clenched teeth. "You think you've won?" Amaka didn't flinch. David took a step closer. "This isn't over." She looked him in the eye, calm and steady. "You already lost me," she said softly. "Everything after that is just noise." He stared at her for a second, then walked away quickly, his shoes hitting the floor with hard, angry steps. Later that evening, Sandra invited Amaka to her office. "There's something else," she said quietly. She handed Amaka a paper. "This document," she said, pointing to a signature at the bottom, "has your name on it. But our handwriting expert confirmed, this is not your signature." Amaka stared at it. She felt cold all over. "He forged my name?" Sandra nodded. "Yes. That's a criminal offense. We can press charges. If you want, we can begin the process now." Amaka sat quietly. She thought about everything. The betrayal, the lies, her mother's death, Ella's question. Then she looked up. "I need to think about it," she said. Sandra nodded. "Take your time." Amaka walked out of the office into the evening air. The sky was soft and pink. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe again. Amaka sat by her window one morning, holding a warm cup of tea. She had thought long and hard about Sandra's offer. She could take David to court again. He had forged her signature. He could go to jail. But Amaka didn't want revenge. She didn't want to waste more years fighting. What she wanted now was peace. So she told Sandra, "Let's settle this the smart way." With Sandra's help, they reached an agreement in court. David would not go to jail, but he had to pay for what he did. The house was returned to Amaka. Her name was now on the deed, legally, officially, finally. David was banned from coming near her or Ella for the next 3 years. His company was fined heavily for the fraudulent sale and shady property practices. Word spread quickly. Clients left. Partners pulled out. His name was now tied to scandal. Amaka didn't smile at the news. She simply breathed easier. She used part of the money from the fine to start something new, something that would help other women she called it Brick by Brick, a foundation to teach women how to protect their assets, register property in joint names, and fight for their rights during marriage. No woman should lose everything just because her name wasn't on paper. Sandra joined as a board member. Chitty offered legal and business support. Together, they built something strong. "Brick by brick," Amaka said during the launch event, "we will help women build lives no one can take from them." Months passed. The house, once full of pain, now stood bright and calm. Amaka had painted it a soft yellow. The garden was clean again. The broken gate was fixed. A new lock was installed, one only she and Ella had keys to. On a quiet Saturday morning, Amaka stood in front of it with her daughter. Ella looked up at her. "Are we really going back home, Mummy?" Amaka smiled, pulled the key from her pocket, and unlocked the door. She pushed it open slowly. Sunlight poured into the empty living room. "Yes, baby," she said softly. "Welcome home." They stepped inside. "This time," Amaka whispered, "it's really ours." The house was quiet. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow through the windows. Amaka sat on the floor of the living room, barefoot, holding a cup of tea in her hand. The room was still empty. No furniture yet. Just quiet. She looked around slowly, taking in the walls she had once designed, the space she had dreamed of, lost and now won back. It felt different now, lighter, calmer. Beside her on the floor was a small framed photo of her mother. She picked it up and smiled gently. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. She closed her eyes, the warmth of the tea rising to her face. In her mind, her mother's voice echoed softly. Then her own voice came, quiet but strong. "They said I was too much, too proud, too loud, too ambitious." A pause. A breath. "But maybe I was just enough for the life I was meant to live." She opened her eyes and looked out the window at the sky. "Now I build again, brick by brick, for me, for my daughter, for every woman who was told she owned nothing." She took another sip of tea, closed her eyes again, and breathed in the peace. The house was hers. Her life was hers. And this time, no one could take it away. Hey besties. Thanks so much for watching till the end. If you loved Amaka's story, betrayal, strength, and taking back what's hers, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more juicy, drama-packed stories every week. Up next, her friends invited everyone except her to their girls' trip. She booked one seat beside. You don't want to miss it. Bye.